Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. Tonight on the program, we spotlight on the life after service for retirees in northern Nigeria, especially because of the rising cost of living squeezing thousands of elderly citizens who have already given back to their country. A Daily Trust special report reveals that many states in the region still pay pensions far below the federal minimum wage of 32,000 naira, with some retirees getting as little as 2,000 to 3,000 naira a month. Pensioners say the money can't even cover their daily meals, let alone medication, amid the worsening health and economic hardship in the country. Tonight, we spotlight the issues with Dr. Ibrahim, a public affairs analyst, and Babangida Garba, Guandu, a retired civil servant from Kebbi State, who will be joining us to provide some context to the conversation. First, let's kick things off with this report that captures the situation in Kaduna, as reported by Trust TV's Bello Musa.
The Secretary of the Union for the 19 Northern State, Al-Hassan Balaraba Musa, said senior citizens are finding it increasingly difficult to survive as they continue to receive paltry stipends as monthly pensions.
There are some states who are receiving 3,000 naira, 4,000 naira, 5,000 naira as pension, which is very unfortunate. And this, and honestly, it will make you to shed tears, because how can you see that somebody who worked for good 35 years, or at least stay for good 60 years in active service, but when he retire, he'll end up receiving just 3,000 naira or 5,000 naira as pension. It's very, very unfortunate.
While condemning the wide disparity between the pensions of retirees and the benefit enjoyed by politicians, he stressed that the union would continue to adopt peaceful strategies in pressing for their rights.
So honestly, we have deliberated, and we are going to take necessary action on all those states that are paying at least that 5,000 naira or 3,000 naira. So we are hoping that these states, especially the entire northern state, a part of Abuja, as I've told you earlier, and Kaduna, they are the only state that are paying a little bit higher than 30,000 naira. So we are hoping these states who are paying 3,000 naira, 5,000 naira, they are going to change it automatically, at least increase their pension to 30,000 naira, so that I can be able to at least uplift their living standard.
The plight of pensioners, he added, has been worsened by the current economic hardships, with only 4 states in the region implementing the minimum pension wage. Bello Musa, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
Right, that indeed paints quite the grim picture about the realities of pensioners, especially those at the state level. Well, some would say pensioners generally in Nigeria are receiving the short end of the stick, because just a couple of weeks ago we've witnessed the nationwide protests that shed light on the realities of retired police officers. But of course, this is just one of many other sectors dealing with this reality of life after service, one that speaks of only penury for the most part. Well, let's kickstart the conversation with our guest here in the studio. Dr. Saleh is here to provide some context to this conversation. 4 out of 19, Dr. Saleh, especially in the northern part of the country. What is your reaction to this reality that is already the day-to-day living of pensioners at the state level?
The issue is far wider than just affecting pensioners. It is a wider public service malaise. If you have operated from the organized private sector and you know the remuneration, you know the standards, and then you come into the public service, then you know that we are not ready for development, because it is the engine room of your development, the public service. If you recruit based on self-interest, you will not pick the best. You go through certain schemes and favor pervades everywhere. Therefore, capacity within the public service remains far, far low. And then if you reflect on attempts in the past to reform the public service, leading to the Orasanya report, those of us that saw what happened, the crisis in the public service, the sharp division, it was shameful to see how some individuals, because of selfish interest, would block anything that will lead to reform. Meanwhile, in any country where you do not have the public service that can deliver for the country, you are doomed. So literally, it is not just pensioners. The entire public service is in deep crisis. And government after government keep failing to address the issue. What I thought was that after the Orasanya report, there was white paper. So when there was change in government, because of the momentum that brought that government, I thought the first thing that government would do was to reform the public service. Look at the duplication everywhere. Parastatals that functions are almost the same everywhere. Then how can you pay all of them attractive remuneration? So it is bloated. The government keeps taking loan after loan to service the overheads. And meanwhile, you have not seen any concrete, bold step to address that issue.
So are you saying it's a money issue?
No, it's not a money. It is part of it.
Right.
It is part of it. It is all issue of sincerity of purpose. Within the structure, the politicians and the top civil servants, they have taken care of themselves. They have given themselves very fat remuneration. If you hear it, it's unbelievable. It's comparable to anywhere in the world. In fact, far higher than some best part of the world. So they have taken care of that. A retired PAMSEC, you know how much he takes monthly? It's unbelievable. And they sat down and worked for themselves and got approval. So what we are seeing essentially is a ruthless scheme within the structure of the service where everybody works for himself and leave the weak and vulnerable to go and die. That is the reality of what is happening. So it is not only pension. Even the public service, go to any of the ministries, pick a level 12 officer, pick his pay slip and see what is there. You know clearly that anybody that earns that kind of money can't even transport himself to the office. So why would you expect that there will be value in that kind of thing?
Right. Let's speak to our guests in Kebbi who will be joining the conversation virtually. Babangida Garba, going to get some insight on this one. I mean, you have served at the state level. Give us your assessment of what we are talking about here. It's very clear that the national average is bad. I mean, Nigeria is going through a wage crisis. Even the newly approved 70,000 naira minimum wage has been eroded significantly. According to the NLC, inflation has pretty much wiped out the purchasing power of most Nigerian workers. What is your understanding of the scale of this problem?
Before I start saying what I want to say, I just want to throw a little question here. The wages in Nigeria, the pension our Nigerians are collecting, is it based, the one being paid by the government, is it based on nominal wages or real wage? This is the question that must be answered. Is it a real wage or based on nominal wage?
I'm afraid
if it is a real wage, it's not supposed to be that amount of money.
Hello,
that is one.
Can you hear me?
Hello, are you hearing me? Are you hearing me?
Well, apparently I'm struggling to hear you here in the studio, so we're going to work on that audio. Just hang on for a moment. We're going to work on that video.
All right, okay. Can you hear me now?
Circle back to you in just a moment, okay?
Can you hear me now?
Well, it's obviously a national challenge, Dr. Saleh, bringing it back here into the studio, that Nigerians are complaining, even people in the service, as you rightly pointed out, are struggling to make ends meet, right? But talk to me about why it is happening in this particular manner. Since the removal of fuel subsidy in 2023, the IGR, or the entire system itself, has seen a huge inflow of cash especially. Apologies for that unintended intermission. But you're watching Daily Politics on Trust TV. Let's bring in our guest once again. Dr. Salih Ibrahim here with us in the studio, but join us virtually for tonight's conversation on the state of pensioners, especially at the state level, with this reported lack of compliance across 15 states in northern Nigeria. Babangida Garba is joining the conversation virtually from Kebbi State. He's a retired civil servant. Just to circle back to the question I asked you earlier about what your reading of the situation is. You were making a point earlier, but we were unable to hear you. So please revisit your line of thought and let's have your understanding of the situation.
Like I've said, the situation is still the same like other states. It is very bad. Here in Kebbi State, we have pensioners collecting 2,000 naira per month. And the question I will raise here is this. Is this 2,000 naira or 4,000 naira being paid to a pensioner based on nominal wage or real wage? It's not like that. Most of our pensioners today, in fact, they are suffering seriously. It is tempting to even say that once you retire from service, you just go home and die. Simple and clear. The money the money the government is paying as pension is just nothing. 2,000 naira, 4,000 naira, 6,000 naira. Presently, a civil servant cannot eat 3 square meals based on his monthly salary, let alone a pensioner. This is what is happening. The amount of money given to pensioners is terribly, very small.
And let's talk about skill. Let's talk about scale, Malam Babangida. Apologies for the interruption. Let's talk about scale. From your understanding, how many pensioners are we talking about from the Kebbi perspective?
I'm talking right from the junior officers up to the senior level officers. Like here in Kebbi State, a permanent secretary, like what the other gentlemen have said, they feel all right. They are getting what they are supposed to get, and they are all right. But a level 16 officer down to level 01 officer, the amount of money they are collecting is very small. It's very meager. It's very small. It's terrible when you see the amount of money being paid to a pensioner. He can't. It's not good. I can even say it's even inhuman to give someone, to pay someone 2,000 naira, 4,000 naira per month. How can you do that? How can government do this to us? It's terrible. Allah is so okay.
Right. And what can you tell us is the relationship or the kind of communication, for instance, the Kebbi State government is trying to have with those retirees who are at the receiving end of this conversation?
We have a very good relationship between the retirees and the state government. We have a very good relationship. But the only thing is, and you know what? The pension is being paid in good time here in Kebbi. But the problem is the amount of money given to our pensioners. It's very terrible.
And what can you tell us about that? I mean, you're a retiree. What is your take-home pay at the end of the month? And what about those who are, junior retired civil servants in the state? What are they taking?
Like I said,
you did talk about 4,000, 6,000, whatever it is. But
yes, for junior officers, hardly in Kebbi State, hardly you see a level 16 officer collecting more than 100,000 naira per month, unless that staff retired from either health department or retired from health and other social things in which their pension is quite different. But any officer who retired from service, right from grade level 16 downward, is not collecting more than 100,000 naira a month here in Kebbi. including the increment, recent increment. Hardly you see an officer retired from service collecting more than 100,000 naira. This is what is happening.
Right.
If you go down, others are collecting less than that, like level 14, level 13, level 12. 60,000 naira, 70,000 naira, and that's all. You collect 70,000 naira, or you collect 100,000 naira. Just by simple calculation, it will never be enough for you for good 30 days. We know the purpose of pension is for someone to eat and shave. That's the purpose of pension. But that pension being paid to civil servant is supposed to be on real wage, not on nominal wage. It's supposed to be on real wage, what an naira can buy. That is supposed to be, the calculation should be based on that. But the government is paying it anyhow they like. Imagine somebody who spent 35 years in service, retiring, his monthly pension cannot cater for him for the whole month.
Yeah.
It's not good.
It's quite a big situation, and it is the understanding for the most part of the unions and analysts that this has been the situation now, and this is perhaps the new normal. But bringing the conversation back into the studio here, Dr. Saleh, you heard the position of Malam Babangida, who is telling us of, listen, the money comes in time, but it's no good because at the end of the day, people are still bending over backward to put food on the table, to take care of themselves. But more telling is the fact that he says, listen, living as a retired civil servant in Nigeria is like a death sentence. The moment you leave the service, you're pretty much on your own because nothing makes sense anymore. Give me your understanding of the scale of the problem versus the scale of the solution. Sometimes we talk about the pension scheme itself. I mean, the police retirees, for instance, who were complaining a little over a week ago or so, where that, listen, our pay package is quite different from the Nigerian army and so on and so forth. The federal pensioners themselves are having a different conversation about their take-home pay, the state as well. But there is a common denominator that is still just not enough. Going into this bracket of pensioners or retirees is something that most civil servants are not looking forward to. Give me your understanding of the scale of the problem versus what it would take to get Nigerians out of this. Because they also have dependents, don't they?
As I said earlier, it is a major malaise within the public sector. The wages are too low, self-interest and monumental corruption pervading the system. What are we talking about? You see a road that if you go to Ghana and just Google 20 kilometer, 30 kilometer, 100 kilometer road or tarmac of an airport, you know how much is spent for that. But in Nigeria, you see 10 times that amount. And shamelessly, people boldly move as if nothing has happened. So what we're having is leakages, is ruthlessness by the elites to acquire wealth. Meanwhile, they have turned politics into a total game for money. You have to have billions before you can go into politics. So the system is pervasive, the system is bad, but then there is hope. What is that hope? It is in this country that former President Obasanjo appointed the former MD of Guarantee Trust Bank with a team to come up with that new pension scheme, contributory pension scheme. Google that thing. It is one of the best practices all over the world. You contribute about 8% and then the government contributes 10% for you. So the money is saved for you. And when you retire, it is what is being paid to you. But you can see that there is struggle, as I said, shameless struggle by some public officers who want to cling into the old order. That is to say, they want to dip their hands in the public till and steal as much as possible. They do not want a system where there is accountability. So the contributory pension scheme is a novel idea. And my belief is that there could be some errors here and there. But the system we are operating, if you, the public officer, from day one, when you start work, there is something being saved for you. And when you retire, that thing is pulled for you and it is invested. You get from it. It may not be enough, but you see there are individuals within the contributory pension scheme that earn 150, 200 or thereabout within the public service now. But some people are fighting the contributory, just like how they fought the reform in public service. That is to say, they are used to putting their hands into the tilt and stealing as much as possible. So they do not want to see order. So what I'm saying in essence, our National Assembly, our government should focus on reforming the critical sectors towards ensuring that this country has hope going into the next millennium.
Yeah, but we also had the Pension Reform Act of 2014, right, yes, which makes it mandatory for local government and state governments to apply the contributory pension scheme. I mean, hearing stories of 2,000 naira, 4,000 naira, 6,000 naira a month pension doesn't make sense considering what the contributory pension scheme is trying to achieve. What do you make of how it is being applied?
You see, there is docility on our part generally in this country. We are too docile, honestly, to call a spade a spade. We are too docile. If there is a law that has stipulated that this is the scheme, and from local governments to states to federal, it is supposed to, some of these unions should go to court and they should challenge those who have refused to implement.
But we also have unions who have kicked against their members being pulled into the contributory pension scheme. And that in itself would serve as a bottleneck, isn't it? Or at least a hurdle.
It's part of the corruption in the system. It's part of the corruption. In fact, we have been in this country. We saw what happened with the old pension scheme, how some individuals were stealing billions from the old order before this new scheme came about. So this new scheme is working, but there are some errors. So it is work in progress. My belief is that we have already perfected a system where if it is well implemented, it will reduce this problem. It will reduce the problem.
Right. And going back to Babangida in Kebbi, what can you tell us about some of these stories you're hearing from pensioners in the state about how they're able to make ends meet? I mean, clearly, we still have active civil service today who cannot make ends meet. So it's quite hard to imagine people who are, old, unable to really stay active in the workspace, but have to rely on those pension schemes for the feeding of their family, for upkeep and everything else. What kind of stories are you hearing from how pensioners in Kebbi State, for instance, state pensioners are able to, navigate this very difficult economic reality?
Well, there is nothing they can do. Now, if you ask me, Babangida, have you ever seen an angel of death? Are you hearing me? I will say yes.
It appears we've lost the...
If you ask me, who is that angel of death? I said, if you go out and see any elected official, it's an angel of death of our pensioners, because our people are just dying. You give me 20,000 naira. I have 10 children. What can 20? For example, I retired from grade level 10, 9 or 10. Okay, I get back home, dying, maybe 60 to 75 years old, isn't it? With my grown-up children, school fees, maybe my daughter is getting married, then my other domestic activities, then right there, you start developing blood pressure, diabetes, and almost everything. Then later you end up going to hospital to die. This is exactly what is happening. We shouldn't hide anything. This is exactly what is happening. Not only in Kebbi, not only in Kaduna, everywhere. That is why I said pensioners are going to hospital to die, simply because their state government officials or elected officials are not taking care of them. This is as simple as this. Our people are dying simply because the nominal wage, the real wage, which is supposed to be paid to a pensioner, is not being paid to him. He end up going home sick. Imagine 2,000 naira, even to buy a common drug, 2,000 naira a month. Please, what is all this? This is inhuman.
Right, but also talk to us about...
Please, I don't want to cry.
Right, I can understand.
I don't want to cry, my friend. Our people. A pensioner in Nigeria, not in Kebbi State, a pensioner in Nigeria is going home, lie down, and die. As simple as that. At 65, you retire at 60, at the age of 60 years, you start collecting your pension. Within 5 years, then everything can happen. Sometimes there is delay in collecting your retirement benefits. So, that frustration, that tension coming to you, a grown-up person, an elderly person, who is susceptible to blood pressure, from there, you get sick, then later, you die. This is exactly what is happening in Nigeria, not in Kebbi State only, in Nigeria. That is why I say, if you ask me, Babangida, have you ever seen an angel of death? I say yes. And if you say, where is he? I say, wherever you go in Nigeria, once you see any elected official, is an angel of death, because they are the one who will decide on how best to collect this remuneration to us. But it's not being paid to us. Imagine somebody collecting this meager amount of money, and they are the one nurturing corruption. Supposing now, at the age of 60 years, at the age of 55 years, I have 5 years remain in my office, and money are coming through my office. I can easily steal it, simply because I know if I retire, maybe the payment of my gratuity will be delayed, and the pension I'm going to collect will be it's just meager, will not be enough for me. So the millions coming across my office, I'll just siphon them and go away, just to prepare for my retirement. This is exactly what is happening. And we're talking of corruption in Nigeria. No, our elected officials are all responsible for this corruption. They are nurturing it. They are nurturing it. They are not trying to stop it. That is at the level of civil service. When you see a senior civil servant retiring and he still government money, don't blame him, because he knew whenever he retired from office, and that's the end of it. If he didn't get to prepare for his retirement, he may end up dying. But still, this money will make him to, get prepared so that maybe he live longer life. But for those who said no, this is exactly what is happening. Allah saw it.
I can understand how, for a lot of people, the end justifies the means, but obviously that would not be encouraging corruption in any way, shape or form. But of course, if you have to pinpoint where the problem is, are you blaming the scheme? I mean, obviously you think politicians are not pulling their weight in trying to address this problem, but do you also believe that there is something faulty with the scheme itself and how it rewards people after they have contributed significantly to some of their life earnings when they retire?
Look, like I said, these elected officials are the decision makers. They are very close to our local people. Once you retire, you become a local one. They see exactly what is happening to retired people. A pensioner, they know they are suffering. Whenever they discuss on issues on pension issue, I think they can say something. Since they are the one to decide for civil servants to act, then they are purely responsible for our suffering. For example, our members of House of Assembly, State House of Assembly, our governors, they can easily, within a short time, decide on the best pension to be paid to each and every state government. They can do that. They know their sufferings. Some officers, they work with some officers before they retire, and after retirement, within 6 months, you see the difference, and they can do something because they are the electorate. They elected them into office, and they usually complain to them. This is exactly what is happening to us, and they can do something, but they refuse to do it. What can a common civil servant do who is to implement their policy? What can he do if they said no? But once they say yes, and if they give, if they can give a directive within 24 hours, this thing can simply change. How many retirees, how many pensioners do we have in each and every state? How many of them? And how many of them are dying every month? I can tell you the number. Because as a chairman of the retiree of Kebbi State, look, we usually receive any, they talk to us on anybody who died. They tell us, so person died. Sometimes we attend the funeral, sometimes we go for the condolence. Per month, if you see them, there are many. Allah Saudi.
I'm into that, yeah. And bringing the conversation back to Dr. Saleh, I know we just pointed this issue out a moment ago about the labor unions and their kick against the contributory pension scheme, for instance. Is that a part of the problem? Because they also believe that the government is not meeting its own end of the bargain in terms of making its own contributory pensions, its own financial obligations to the contributory pension scheme. Do you fear that the kick against the implementation of the contributory pension scheme itself is part of the reason why we're talking about this short end of the stick for state pensioners?
As I said earlier, it is all issue of sincerity of purpose. If you have those in the position of authority that will come up with appropriate structure to ensure that whoever retires gets his entitlement, his gratuity, and then but the process is allowed to work. You prioritize the deductions and make sure that it is not tampered with. It will solve the problem. So my belief is that there is need to enlighten the workers more to understand that the contributory pension scheme is far better than the old order. It is far better than the old order. There should be some enlightenment on the part of their unions and so on. And in fact, even the National Assembly, they should enlighten them to understand the implication of adopting the contributory pension scheme. As I'm talking to you, I'm a beneficiary of the contributory pension scheme. And I can see that it has not solved all the problem, but certainly it is from your own, the pool of the resources saved for you that you are getting something every month. At a particular date, 16th of the month, your contributory pension scheme will come to you. It's not too much, but certainly it is better than what the meager thing we are hearing, 2,000, 4,000. No.
Right. For instance, in Ogun State, the leadership of the organized labor says that, quote, retirement should be a time to enjoy the fruits of one's labor. But in Ogun State, for instance, they said it is the opposite, and I believe in some case in other states too. It says from inception, the state government has defaulted on the pension law. Not a dime has been paid into the contributory pension scheme under Governor Abiodun's administration, yet it plans to begin its implementation by July 1st. So this was just a little over a month ago. I mean, is the government, I did ask the question earlier about whether this is a money issue, where the state governments are cash strapped, but also we've recorded a 60% jump in terms of FAC allocation. So it means these states are also getting a lot more money.
Exactly.
But do you fear also there is this lack of compliance, not just on the fact that there is a new 32,000 minimum pension wage per month, but also in terms of the execution of the contributory pension scheme itself, where the worker gets, the deduction on a monthly basis, but the employer, the government, as the case may be, is not remitting the necessary funds into the contributory pension.
That is the area where I expect the NLC to bite. Honestly, I do not see why NLC will not sit down and look at the states that have refused to obey the law and take them up. It's because these states are getting far more money. In this country, we were around when under Abacha, there was removal of subsidy, and we saw the kind of work PTF did all over on hospitals and so on. Now, much more than that has been removed as subsidy, but we are seeing bogus contracts in trillions for roads that may not even be necessary. In this modern age, you need fast train. With the insecurity we have, there are certain areas where focus should be turned through. But unfortunately, because the politicians want to give bogus contracts and profit from it, they keep dishing out contracts in trillions, in billions, without commensurate benefit to the public. So my belief is that this is the kind of thing that I expect NLC to bite, to insist, because from what the gentleman is saying, it is very pathetic that individuals are dying for refusal to pay their rights. It is bad enough. So NLC should look at such things and come up to challenge what is going on.
They have also recently talked about a countdown to a strike action, something related directly to this conversation that we're having, where it says that if the federal government is failing to return the claims or what it claims to have been billions of naira taken from workers' insurance contributions, it also demanded that the government should fill the leadership gap in the country's pension regulatory commission within a week, where it accuses the federal government of siphoning 40% of contributions from the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund into the National Treasury. They say the fund, which is financed by the payroll deductions for millions of workers, is meant to protect them in the event of injury or job loss. So it does appear, like we've established earlier, as you've pointed earlier, that this is not just a state problem or local government problem. It's a national problem where even the federal government itself has to deal with some gaps. But in talking about whether this pressure is enough, do you get a reading that the tide is shifting or is changing regarding all the outcry from pensioners, from pressure groups, from the organized labor itself? Do you think the government is responding to some of these concerns well?
In fact, what I have seen so far is a situation where the government is chasing shadow and leaving the substance. If government removes subsidy, and then if government floats the naira, and then individuals are having tough time to feed, to buy drugs, people are in difficulty, farmers can't buy fertilizer, then instead of you to constructively address those issues, you are fighting opposition. The main thing is those issues are the issues between you and the general public. So face those issues constructively and bring solutions. There was a time I wrote something in Trust recently. What I was saying was that I don't believe in the jargon that people are spreading all over the place about subsidy. What sort of subsidy? We have oil in this country. Can't you punish those who are responsible for the corruption in the system? How many people have you arrested? What have you done? Those who are given contracts for repair of refineries and taking out billions, and the refineries are not working. What are you doing? What are the anti-corruption agencies doing? We talk about oil theft. It is the mainstay of the economy. Who have you arrested? Who have you tried? These are issues that pain every responsible individual, because you can see that some people are chasing shadow, leaving the substance. If constructively you address this issue of subsidy, you make sure that the price of oil comes down reasonably, and you make sure that the naira does not float the way it is floating. People are getting out of difficulty gradually, hope is restored. You don't have to even fight in the opposition. But you think that it is by clamp down on opposition and then going to interfere with the other parties and putting malls there to fight. Address issues. You are in power. You have the responsibility. You took out of office. Solve these problems.
All right. And let's segue back into back to Kebbi, where Babangida is standing by, Malam Babangida Garba is standing by. And of course, just a quick reminder before we wrap things up, I would love to get one or two contributions from our viewers. We'll be opening the phone line so you can chip in, because I get the sense that a lot of people have different opinions about what is actually going on right now, and different life experiences about the pension of civil servants, especially those at the state level. Malam Babangida, bringing you back into the conversation, your governor in Kebbi State is someone who has built a career for himself fighting for the rights of workers, teachers to be precise, right? And I believe that there are teachers in Kebbi State who are at the receiving end of this. What do you think is the body language of the leadership in Kebbi State regarding the pay package of pensioners? Is this something that is going to improve because of the current economic reality?
Yes, because the governor is very sensitive on this issue, and he has been saying it time without number. For example, now the increment on pension, there is a circular. They are waiting for the circular from the federal government. When it comes, he promised to go by that circular to pay whatever the federal government wants him to pay. And let me tell you, every month, pensioners are the first to be paid their pension when they are paying salary here in Kebbi State. Our governor is very sensitive on this, but the only thing, his hands are tired on the payment of this increment, because, you know, federal government must approve the minimum wage to be paid to pensioner, minimum pension to be paid to our pensioners. Up to now, we are waiting patiently of what is going to happen. But believe me, right now, pensioners are seriously suffering. Like I've said, and I repeat, our pensioners are dying. Most of them, when they go to hospital, they die.
And that is something that resonates with people, not just here in the north, not just in Kebbi, as you pointed out. It's a national crisis that continues to unfold without much happening by way of mitigation or addressing some of those gaps. Whether it's the scheme itself, whether it's the management of some of these contributions that have been made over the years. People talk about where are the profits, why are pensioners still struggling to make ends meet. Well, let's have a conversation. Let's open the phone lines now for some contribution and opinions or thoughts, if you have any, regarding this conversation about the poor remuneration of pensioners. A recent report has indicted significant part of the northern Nigeria, generally speaking, where only 4 states have been identified to have complied with the new national pension wage of 32,000 and above, while the others are still playing catch-up. According to reports, as low as 2,000 naira is the take-home pay of some pensioners in different parts of the country. And this is not on a daily basis. That is the monthly take-home pay of someone who has served in the government for at least 35 years. And that says a lot about the gaps that currently exist regarding the economic realities on ground and what the government thinks it's fair for pensioners to take. And obviously, it's something that reverberates not just at the state or local government level, but even at the federal level, where this remains a huge concern. I mean, the Nigeria Labour Congress itself is taking a familiar action by warning of an impending strike if the government at the federal level does not do the needful to address some of those concerns it has expressed, as leading many workers to not smile to the bank when it's time to retire. And just to re-echo what Malam Babangida Garba has been saying that when pensioners leave or when people retire from civil service in Nigeria, it's almost like a death sentence to be on the pension scheme for your survival. Right, let's open up the phone lines and speak to our first caller. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. All right, we'll be waiting for our next call. I think apparently we've lost that connection. We just have a couple of minutes to spare. Dr. Saleh, talking about what comes next. I mean, the NLC will say, listen, we're applying the much needed pressure, right? Pensioners are saying we're running out of time. Our families, our means of livelihood is being upended, and listen, they've dissipated much of their youthful energy serving their country, and this is the time they are supposedly supposed to rest, right? But nothing much is happening. Is there a stopgap in your view to stop the bleeding until we correct some of those anomalies within the system? Because you have administrations who are saying, listen, when we came into power, XYZ administration did not pay their own the financial obligations to the contributory pension scheme, and we don't have enough resources to address those backlogs. What in your view is the stopgap right now to immediately address what the pensioners need now as we try to sort things out?
The contributory pension scheme ought to be fully implemented. The NLC should put its feet down and ensure across the entire strata the contributory pension scheme is implemented. In fact, you do not have to get 100% of all your needs at once, but you can start somewhere, and then the system will gradually be addressing some of these things, and at the end, solution will be found. But the distressing part of our own tragedy is that you are hearing just political talks, practically nothing on ground to solve the problem. But some of us that have served, I served about 35 years in public and private sector, and I have seen exactly what is there. People simply manipulate the system. People manipulate the system for their own benefits. So there is no sincerity or purpose to solve the problem. So that is why I'm saying NLC should focus on this as an important aspect of the needs of the workers and get results for it. That is my belief. They can get something out of it, this thing, if they insist. And Nigerians will support them, because Nigerians can see clearly that individuals are dying. People know.
Right. It is quite a painful reality, to say the least, or to point out the obvious. Dr. Saleh, as always, thank you so much for the analysis. I appreciate you very much for stopping by on Daily Politics tonight. Malam Babangida Garba, I appreciate you for joining the conversation, and thank you so much for being a part of tonight's conversation.
Thank you very much. Not good.
And this week's edition of Daily Politics. We'll be back next week live on Monday, exclusive as always on Trust TV. Until next time, I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. For myself and the rest of the team, thank you for joining us tonight. We will see you soon.